What's up, beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. This is my first time sitting down and filming in a hot ass minute, so I'm sorry if I'm a little like out of it, but at least I look cute. I tried. So today I am back with a video that I promised you guys following like book and breakfast. We have talked about a lot of books this year and we are already creeping into June. It was literally just January, but that's neither here nor there. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about my top unforgettable favorite reads of the year so far. All of these are 5-star books for me. All of these hit me in the heart, and I will say I think the first half of this year has been an amazing just time with books for me. I found some amazing things. I found stories that literally hit me in the gut or just made me incredibly happy. Also may have made me incredibly horny, but that's neither here nor there. So if you're interested in hearing all about my top favorite books so far of 2023, then just keep on watching. First, we'll talk about the two that I don't have in front of me. One I read on Libby via audiobook, and that is Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding by Chencia, Higgins. Y'all, this story, and also going into Pride Month, you need to read Devon and Chris. Devon and Chris is about two young women who have entered into a dating competition / show to find love. The premise of this show and their world is that you have these couples who are meeting for the first time and they have to convince each of their families that they are going to be getting married on the fly. So they have to be very good actors. At the end of this competition, if you make it to the wedding day, if you have both of your families fully convinced, you have either two options. You can take the money, which I believe is $100,000, or you can get married. And up until this point, nobody has actually decided to get married. Everybody has come in, taken the money and gone about their lives. So enter Devon and Chris. This is coming at a height where the show is taking a new turn with the LGBT twist, right? And so we have two women, Chris and Devon. Chris is coming in full on looking for a wife. Chris is looking for love. She is a full-time teacher and coach, but she also has a huge social media presence. And then we also have Devon, who is coming in and using the show as a platform to come out to her family. She is fully just afraid of being honest about who she is with her family, and she sees this show as the perfect opportunity. And I absolutely lived for the dynamics between Chris and Devon, especially because Chris really holds Devon down, and Devon holds Chris down in other ways too, but we consistently see throughout their budding relationship in this book that they don't just have chemistry, they don't just have physical chemistry, but they actually have true loyalty to one another, and the way that Chris will kind of look at Devon and be like, no, we're going to talk about this. We're not going to gloss over this. We're not going to sit here and let it fester. We're going to talk about this. We're going to work it out and we're going to get past it. And I just loved every bit of this book. The characters were incredibly rich and complex. I cried several times reading this book, especially at the end. If you have not read Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding, if you love rom-coms, highly recommend. Next book that I don't have in front of me because my mom is reading it right now is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I think I read this last month. Depending on when this video is going up, it's either last month or the month before last month. But either way, I read this book recently. It has been on my shelf for a very long time, and so many people have been like, Brie, if you don't get your shit together and read this book. And I finally did, and I am so happy that I did. I feel like there's a lot of controversy around this book. I think a lot of people go into this book expecting it to be something that it's not. A lot of people talk about 7 Days in June as if it's this huge, grand romance. And while there are a lot of romantic aspects in it, I think to call it this grand, fluffy romance is not it. And I think a lot of people go into the book expecting that, and that's not what this book is. 7 Days in June chronicles literally 7 days between our two main characters who have a long-standing history together. When we meet them in the present, they are both authors, and they have both been writing about each other subliminally for years. Back when they were teenagers, they met at the height of huge crises in their lives. We have our main female character who is suffering from chronic illness and is dealing with drug use. And then we also have our main male character who is dealing with drug use. Both are addicts. Both have been forced into traumatic situations via their families. And when they meet each other as children, they basically go on a huge bender for like 7 days. And it ends up with the two of them being separated. And it is a huge turning point in each of their lives. Up until this point, they have not seen each other for, I want to say, like 20 something years. And when they reconnect, our main male character is making this choice to reach out as a way to finish his personal healing and journey with his sobriety. And so essentially these two are getting another 7 days to basically go back into the past, unravel what happened, find the truth, and figure out if there's a possibility that they can have a budding relationship moving forward that is healthy. And I absolutely live for this story, one, because of the rep. And I feel like a lot of people trash this book because people have a lot of opinions when it comes to stories that center around addiction. And I think a lot of the pushback comes from that, but I felt like not only the addiction rep was really important, but the addiction rep in relation to the representation of chronic illness. And those of you who have chronic illness know that unfortunately a lot of times that treatment or the lack of treatment can send you down a path that is incredibly toxic and incredibly unhealthy. While these two both had toxic behaviors in the beginnings of their journeys, I feel like I love seeing how when they reconnected, they both established their boundaries and what they could and couldn't deal with. And seeing them kind of uncover all of the things that happened and really actually sorting out their baggage together. I feel like when you get to the end of the story, this isn't a, oh my God, I love you, you love me, we're going to be together forever. But it is the possibility, seeing these two people healing, and coming to terms with all of these things that they have never had the opportunity to really talk about, was just beautiful. I thought it was a beautiful story. I absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorites, just in general. It's one of my favorite books of all time. Like I said, if you go into this thinking that it's going to be like a grand, fluffy romance, it's not that. This deals with really serious, difficult topics, but it is so well done. And I think it is actually, I think it has been greenlit for a movie. I know Tia Williams' other book, The Perfect Find, was greenlit for a movie, and I think that's going to be on Netflix or something like that. But I think that 7 Days in June also did get greenlit for a movie, and I hope they do that justice, guys. Okay, so I did a buddy read with my friends Michaela at Bookish Delight and Sarai Reads over on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, if you're on Book Talk and you're not following them, you should. They make such wonderful content. And Michaela always has me cracking up. That is my girl. So all three of us were like, hey, people keep telling us to read this book. Why don't we buddy read it? And y'all, I was thinking it was just going to be like some really unhinged erotica, and that's all that I was going to get. I didn't think that I was going to get one of the best books that I have read this year. And that says a lot because I've read some good shit this year. And that is Debt by Nina G. Jones. Y'all see the tabs? Listen, we were buddy reading, we were taking notes, we were making videos. I had to tab this. There was so much going on. This is the very unhinged story of Tax and Mia. Now, our girl Mia is a very regular, degular, schmegular girl. She actually works at a sex toy company, and she has some very particular interests when it comes to her sex life. And when we are introduced to her at the beginning of the book, she's kikiing with her best friend, and her best friend tells her about this underground site where you can go on and pay someone to act out your your wildest CNC fantasy. Yes, consensual, non-consent fantasy. So she goes on, she signs up for it, she pays them, and she just waits. A little bit later, Mia goes home. Good homie is in her house, and he blows the back out. She questions nothing because she hired these people to come and, you know, rough her up and blow her back out. She had the best sex of her life, the greatest experience of her life. And everything is all good. Everything's copacetic until she goes home another night and finds out that the guy that blew her back out is not the guy that was hired to blow her back out. Bear with me, okay? Enters Tax Draconi, okay? Tax is a not so stranger. Tax has a 15-year vendetta against Mia, and he is out to destroy her life. He shows up to her job and basically makes their entire relationship her repayment. Now, Mia has no idea who Tax really is. Mia and Tax are former friends from their childhood. He was kind of the loser of the school and the town. She was the pretty girl, kind of, you know, preppy. Everybody was friends with her. She was dating the jock guy, all of that. He had a crush on her. She enjoyed his company, but she didn't really know that he had feelings for her. Mia never really felt comfortable in her hometown. She always felt like the people were just doing the most. And overall, she just felt like the people that she lived around were not good people. And in a case of mistaken affection, Tax and his sister end up being beat up, and he ends up having to watch his sister being sexually assaulted. He blames Mia. He thinks Mia did this. He thinks Mia is the reason why all of this happened. And so he carries out this long vendetta with his twin sister to get back at her. But the longer he spends time with Mia, aside from the fact that he's already gotten the kitty cat and he's obsessed, like he's like remembering all the reasons why he was crazy about this woman, he's just sitting there going, wait, there is no way that she did this. Like, I can't fathom that this sweet, loving human being who seemingly cares about me and appreciates my unhinged affections could have put in motion all of the things that happened to me and my sister. Y'all, when I tell you, I was not expecting the plot to plot this hard. I thought I was just, like I said, I thought I was just going to get some unhinged erotica. This story was layered and it tackled way more than I expected. Now listen, the spice is spicing. Like, it's like every 10 pages, somebody is getting the kitty just destroyed, okay? So don't get me wrong. It's spicy. It is unhinged. But at the same time, the way that the author moves back and forth between the present and the past between these two characters is just everything. And it really tackles some difficult issues, especially when it comes to Tax and the codependency that he experiences with himself and his twin sister. Y'all, the last 100 pages of this book had me, Sarai, and Michaela in tears. We were video messaging each other, just like sniffling and sobbing. It was so good. And I think this is the only book that I've ever read that was a truly dark, unhinged situation where I felt like the two main characters actually had a fighting chance to be together by the end of the book. It's so good. The people who suggested this book to me, I understand why they're obsessed with it. Does it sound insane when you first hear the premise? Absolutely. But this book is so much more than the little blurb on the back. It was phenomenal. This is maybe one of my favorite erotica books of all time. Listen, if you loved dark, if you don't read dark romance, do not pick this up. But if you love dark romance, if you love a little bit of unhinged in your life, Dead by Nina G. Jones, this book is my baby. I cannot wait for book 2 to come out in June. I have honestly just discovered this year that I truly am a why choose girly at heart. If there can be 4 or 5 of them, I don't understand why I wouldn't want to keep 4 or 5 of them. Deal with the Devil by Bex Devau. Book 1 in the Underworld University is probably one of... It's battling for my top why choose story of all time. This book chronicles the life, well, the afterlife of our main character, Olivia. Olivia is basically like a mafia princess, and when we're introduced to her, there are some weird happenings with her family. She's currently trying to get her degree, and she's also basically in charge of taking up the mantle of running the family business with her brother and her uncle. Now, there's a little bit of unrest because prior to the present of this book, we know that she has murdered her ex-boyfriend. And his brother is out for blood. And eventually he gets Olivia. And when Olivia is killed, she wakes up in hell. But she doesn't just wake up in hell, she wakes up in the Underworld University. The Underworld University is basically a university set in the afterlife where human souls and demons mix. And so this gives demons the opportunity to practice their bargaining, and it gives humans the opportunity to wipe their slates clean. And if you can imagine, with Olivia being a mafia princess, she's she's up there with them. And so Olivia is like, okay, you know what? I'm a boss bitch. I'm gonna rock this out. I'm gonna do what I need to do to wipe my slate clean. And as she is going throughout this process, she meets several different characters who just rock her underworld. Okay, we have 5 different characters who are absolutely 100% obsessed with our girl Olivia, and she is obsessed with them, and she basically is kind of running her own little mafia in the underworld. This story is so incredibly layered. We have tension with the ex-boyfriend, who of course also ends up at the Underworld University. We have angels. We have shapeshifters. We have fated mates. We have the Prince of freaking hell. Like, we have so many amazing characters, and all 5 of these characters involved in Olivia's why choose romance are just yummy, amazing. We also have a sapphic love interest in here. Like, there are so many things about this book that I didn't know that I needed all in one. And there are so many questions. I have so many theories. This is book 1 of, I think, is what's going to be a 5-part series. Y'all, if you love fantasy, if you love dark romance, if you love why choose, if you love sapphic relationships, if you love beautiful queer rap, I mean, you need to get into this. Everything about this was amazing, and Bex's writing style just, it niggles my cerebellum. Like, me and Bex's writing style, yeah. This book is phenomenal. More people need to be talking about it. So I'm going to tell you to go buy this. My first introduction to this author, and it has made me go into their entire backlist, and I have bought more books than I should, but you know what? I'm okay with that. Behind the Scenes by Christina C. Jones. Listen, if you are looking for a good Black indie romance author, you gotta get into CCJ. And I feel like this is an amazing place to start because it is a standalone. This follows the kind of rivals to friends to lovers story of Logan and Pierre. So Logan is... she's not really an agent. How would I describe her? Logan is a budding entrepreneur who runs her own assistant services, and she basically services the stars. Enter Pierre. He is a screenwriter who comes from a legacy of screenwriters. And after breaking up with her boyfriend in the middle of the night, Logan runs into the curb and almost hits Pierre. This is how they meet. They get it in that night, and then the next day they go to their business meeting and find out that Pierre is Logan's new client. I genuinely enjoyed this because while there were little bouts of drama in between, I love the way that these two characters communicated with one another. Logan is a very, like, take no shit personality. And Pierre, although he does have that sometimes kind of a little delulu masculinity, he is also relatively level-headed. He is recovering from alcoholism and he stands in his sobriety. And so the things that he has learned from trying to heal himself has also made him a more level-headed individual. And so when different things arise throughout their working relationship, to their friendship, to their budding romance, I love the way that these two communicate with one another. And even though we have a little bit of drama to get us through the story, it never feels like this intense, like, wow, like, big thing. We don't really have a third act breakup in here, so if you don't like third act breakups, you ain't gotta worry about that either. This was phenomenal. If you're looking for something that is going to kind of give you that romance itch with, like, that really good, like, black romance edge, because, you know, black romance hit different. If the character is wearing grills and a do-rag, it hits different. And we get that. We get all of that in here. But we also get the lovey-dovey, fluffy feels. Like, I just love them as a couple. Another couple that I feel like would literally stand the test of time. Then I highly suggest picking up Behind the Scenes by Christina C. Jones. This made me fall in love with her work and made me just go into her entire backlist. So. Also a new author for me this year. I've heard so much about her, and y'all were right. Y'all were right. All I've Wanted, All I've Needed, in the Beginning of Forever by A.E. Valdez. So good. This is a friends to lovers black romance, and this is Sunshine and Ace's love story. When we are initially introduced to Harlow, aka Sunshine, she is at a kind of critical turning point in her life. She has been dating her boyfriend for several years, and he is going into Major League Baseball, and she just feels like her entire life has been taken over by his needs, his existence, and his career. He proposes to her, and she says, you know what? I can't do this. She rejects his proposal. She goes home and basically decides she needs to change her life. She goes on a trip, and eventually that leads to her moving out to another state and living with her family so she can kind of get a new start. And at one of her jobs, she meets Ace. And Ace is a grump, the biggest grump. But he's a hot grump, right? And what I love about the two of them meeting is that while they have this initial chemistry, they also just have this need to be near one another and comfort each other. It's not inherently sexual. It's not inherently lusty. They just want to be in each other's orbit. And constantly throughout this book, you see how Ace and Harlow show up for one another time and time and time and time again. And you really can't question the love for these two. This is so good. If you are a lover of fluffy romance, especially if you're looking for a fluffy black romance, there's a lot out there, y'all. People act like we don't have any fluffy black romance. We do. Y'all just aren't. Y'all ain't looking. This is one of my favorites. I absolutely love these characters. I can't wait to read the other books by A.E. Valdez because they do chronicle the love stories of other characters that we meet in these two books. So if you want something fluffy, you know where to go. We're getting off of the fluff train. These two deal heavily with grief. They deal with heavy subject matters. And so while these are 5-star reads, I feel like to me they are kind of life-changing reads for me. They may be difficult reads for some individuals. So much like with 7 Days in June, they tackle very difficult topics. The first one is by an author that is basically an immediate love. If she writes it, I'm gonna read it. I have an entire video coming on this author soon. That is Longshot by Kennedy Ryan, and it is the first book in the Hoops trilogy. This book is not an easy read. Emotionally, this is not an easy read, but this book also managed to do everything that Colleen Hoover tries to do and typically generally just fails at. If you are reading Coho and you have not read Longshot, I promise this is the one that you need to read. This is Iris's story. And I say this is Iris's story because although we do have a romance plot with Iris and August, the brunt of this story is about Iris. When we initially meet her, she has a really wonderful meet cute with August. She's at a bar. He walks in. I met a girl at a bar. If you watch Grey's Anatomy, you know. And she is just this foul-mouthed Lakers fan who is just like living it up. And he is just like, I have met the woman of my dreams. They hit it off, they kiki, but when she's walking home at the end of the night, she tells him like, I can't let you kiss me, I do have a boyfriend. And she finds herself kind of regretting not allowing herself to give August a shot. What August does not know is that she is the girlfriend of a rival basketball player in the NCAA. And so Iris is with this man. She's been with him throughout her college career. A little golden white boy with the blue eyes, you know, yeah. And he is kind of like America's sweetheart of the basketball world, but all that glitters, we know, is not gold. And when it is very much obvious that August, his rival, has a thing for his girlfriend, he really lays it on thick with the domestic abuse. He eventually traps her into getting pregnant. She finds herself in a situation where she is not able to work, and she is stuck with him, and he completely isolates her from everyone in her family and anyone in her friend life. And so I say this is the story of Iris because the majority of this book, we don't even really get to see Iris and August together. There are maybe 3 or 4 times throughout the beginning of this book that we see these very precious moments between Iris and August. And in a lot of ways, August is that compass that gets Iris through these horrible things. There is very graphic domestic violence in this book, y'all. So if you cannot handle that, do not read it, okay? But when she makes it out, she does make it out. When she makes it out, it is absolutely stunning. And the love that she finds with August is absolutely phenomenal. Kennedy Ryan did an amazing job with this book. It is painfully accurate. This book, in a lot of ways, to me, I would consider a life-changing read. Like I said, it does everything that Colleen Hoover wanted to do with It Ends With Us. And the main thing for me is that at no point in this book does Kennedy Ryan ever make us think that Iris's boyfriend is the good guy. We know he is not the good guy. We know he is the villain. There is no way that you can try to rationalize in your mind that he is even relatively a good man. And I appreciate that she does not romanticize any of the horrible things that happen to Iris. But the love between Iris and August is just one of the sweetest that I've ever seen in a book. And the way that he rides for her, the way that he shows up for her, but also the way that Iris saves herself. She's not waiting for somebody to save her. She saves herself. And I think that is very important to see. I think it's important in these types of stories for us not to give all the credit to the man coming in to swoop in and save you, because life never really works out like that. So yeah, if you have been thinking about reading this and you think you can deal with the subject matters, I highly suggest. It's one of the best books I've read this year. I'm also going to be starting the Kingmaker trilogy soon. I think it's literally at my door, so I'm going to be starting that soon as well too. And I have the rest of the Hoop series to finish. But from what I understand, the other 2 books in the Hoop series are not anywhere near as dark as Longshot. So if you want to get into that series, but you don't think you can handle Longshot, I suggest reading either Blockshot or Hookshot. Listen, this book is so hyped up, and it's hyped up for a reason because it's good. You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi is, y'all, this is probably one of my favorite discussions and portrayals of grief ever. Our main character here is Faye, and when we meet her, she is trying to get back into the world of dating and relationships after losing her fiance in an accident. And she is kind of going through the motions, kind of messily, right? She's kind of just dipping her toes into sleeping around a little bit. She meets a few men. She finds this guy who, you know, she's made it very clear to you that, like, I'm not ready to be in a relationship, but I appreciate your friendship. Faye is a budding artist, and this man gives her the opportunity to come out to his home in the islands and stay with him and his father in order to share part of one of her art installations that is built upon her experiences in this car accident and the grief that she feels. While she is there, she starts to catch feelings for this guy's daddy. And a lot of people really focus on the mess in this book, but the way that this book tackles grief, I live for it. I think sometimes people really want these well-packaged, really tightly put together, fluffy stories where there's no mess, there's no fuss, and it's like, we can have that every now and then, but that's not real. Grief is messy, grief is nasty, and sometimes you do not find solace in the people that you think you will find solace with, and that is Faye's story. I absolutely love this, and look, Faye is a bad bitch, okay? If you haven't read this, I highly suggest it, even though it does deal with some very difficult topics, and I feel like a lot of the flashbacks and the things that have happened to Faye can be incredibly triggering for some people, so do know that that is there. But this was bomb. I love this book. I'm really going to probably in the next couple of months reread this and annotate it because it's a fave. Now that I did discover that I truly am a white shoes girly this year. These books really brought out the white shoes girly in me. And that is the Losers Duet by Harley, Laroux. Would this be classified as dark romance? I guess it would kind of be classified as dark romance. This basically has a kink list that is longer than the Constitution, okay? Anything that you can think of is probably in here, close to it. This is another white shoes romance, and it is meaty, and this follows our main character, Jess. Now, this duet does have a prequel novella to it, which is called The Dare. This duet takes place, I think, 2 years after the settings of The Dare. So, at The Dare, basically it's set at a Halloween party. Enters Jess in her, good girl cheerleader fashion. She's that chick. She's that bitch. There's a drinking game, and she ends up in this drinking game with one of the so-called losers of the school, Manson. And when she loses his drinking game, she has to take on a dare that she is basically going to be his schmeck slave for the night. And they do some crazy, they do some stuff, y'all. But I really enjoyed that novella because it introduces you not just to Jess and Manson, but all of the other guys that are in these two. This takes place 2 years after, and Jess is coming back to town after finishing college. And the guys are already kind of miffed with her because after the events that took place in The Dare, she just dipped. Like, Manson was head over heels with her. And she just dipped. And Manson just thought that, like, he did something wrong. Maybe he went too far and she didn't voice it or whatever. But she was just afraid of being seen with these guys. She has been the popular girl her entire life. And she really doesn't like her life. She doesn't like her friends. She doesn't even like her family. But she is afraid to move on from the status quo. And so we have Manson, Lucas, Vincent, and Jason. All 4 of these guys have been kind of known as the losers at the school, and they have grown up into very, like, pretty hot guys. Jess ends up in a situation where she is caught pranking the guys, and she ends up owing them another debt. And that is how their why choose relationship starts. Technically, this is more so polyam because the guys have their own relationships together as well as their own relationship with Jess. The thing I love about this is that, yes, it's raunchy, it's kinky, but the relationships between these characters, the growth of every single one of these characters, the way that Jess rides for all of these men, and the way that they ride so hard for her, y'all, it's good. If you love dark romance, I think you will enjoy this. If you love why choose, you will enjoy this. If you love erotica, you will enjoy this. Like I said, everything you can think of is in this book. Well, in both of these books. And it just gets spicier and spicier. Like every 10 to 12 pages, they're doing something. The spice is what brought me to the series, but the relationships between these characters and the way that these characters grow throughout the series, immaculate. I've seen this book all over my TikTok FYP. I follow the author, and so I was really excited to finally get into it. And after the last couple of weeks just being pretty like emotionally unstable for me, I was like, I'm gonna read something else unhinged. Heartless Heathens by Santana Knox. Yeah. Another why choose dark romance. This is a why choose dark gothic romance. And so this is set in a post-pandemic world, and it follows the rediscovery of our main female character, Romina. So this is like a Notre Dame retelling. We are living in a world where much of the population has been killed off, and the church has taken that as its opportunity to take over and really control women's bodies, their rights, everything you can think of. And the man who was really at the helm of this is Frollo. He's kept Romina locked in a bell tower her entire life. She knows nothing of civilization except for what she sees looking out her window when she goes to ring that bell. Her best friend is a gargoyle, okay? So when we meet Romina, she is kind of like fed up with just being locked away, and she really wants the opportunity to get to mingle with the outside world. And that choice is taken away from her until enter 3 very interesting guys that are the heathens of this book. They are basically being sent in as spies for the Church of Satan to basically try to dismantle everything that Frollo has done. This book is very much anti-church, and if you're not with that, that's fine, cool, you can move on. I don't care. These guys move into the chapel. What they don't know is that there's a girl living upstairs locked away in the bell tower, until she sneaks into one of their rooms. One of the guys finds her and almost chokes her to death. And she ends up kind of being like the center of these guys' existence. It's really, really good. And overall, I just loved seeing the growth of Romina as a character. And I really love the way that this book discusses the savior complex, right? Because we have Romina and we have this man who has been keeping her locked away and treating her as a blank slate for his own, personal ideals. But then you also have these 3 guys who come in, and even though they kind of want to be her saviors in a way, they also see her as a blank slate. And I love how this calls out on both ends of the spectrum that that's not okay. Romina is not a blank slate. She is her own person with her own ideas and her own views, and she has the right to discover the world for herself. And I just love that about this book. It was so good. This book is not for everybody, but it was for me. I love it. Definitely one of my favorite reads of the year, and Santana Knox has officially become one of those like will buy authors for me. When they drop a book, I'm reading it. I literally just finished this book today. It was amazing. Y'all need to get this book, okay? This is Obsidian Feathers by Cáceres. And y'all, if you love Omegaverse, if you love werewolves, you need to get this. This is a Latina dark fantasy romance that is basically its own twist on werewolves. Our main character is Angie. When we meet her, she is in her early 30s, and she is really down and out about her life. Her entire life, she has been controlled and manipulated by her mother, and she's basically placed into a situation where she is being forced to marry a man that she does not love, and she has the potential of a conservatorship being hung over her head by her mother. So at this point, she has pretty much lost all of her agency in her life. She doesn't even like her job. Her job is there for her own mother's political gain. After she is forced into this engagement with this man, she's at work and finds out that she has to go to another country to help with her job. So she goes on this business trip in this beautiful location, and she meets a tall, dark, and handsome, fine ass man, and enters Sal. Sal seems like the perfect stranger, right? He is just immediately taken with her. He is like, listen, what do I have to do to earn, like, what do I have to do to deserve you? Name it and I'll do it. He is instantly obsessed. The man is taken with her. And although she thinks that he is the perfect stranger, Sal is actually not the perfect stranger, because Sal has known her since they were children. And they had a cute little makeshift wedding on the playground. And he has been setting up his entire life to get Angie and bring her back into the fold, because he is actually not everything he seems to be. And he has a cadejo, which is basically their shadow version of werewolves. This book, the culture, the spice, oh, y'all, the freaking spice, Jesus. There were so many times I was reading the book and I was just like, it's that kind of spicy. I mean, it's unhinged. There's like a cat and mouse dynamic between them. But I love seeing the way Angie finds herself in this story. It's so good. And Nemi's writing style is, it niggles my brain. It's so good. There is just something about this book, although it has very dark themes, there's something about the way Nemi writes that is like drinking a warm steaming mug of hot chocolate. Like, it is just so rich and layered. The characters are everything. I can't wait to find out more about the other characters that are in this book. I'm pretty sure there are more books coming in this series. Y'all, if you are looking for a good dark fantasy romance, a phenomenal dark fantasy romance, this is the one. This is it. Obsidian Feathers. Read it. You will not be disappointed. So that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah. All of this is really, really good. Is it smutty? Yes. But you know what? I have no problem with that. I have needed a heavy dose of smut this year, and I'm okay with that. Y'all let me know what some of your top books have been for 2023, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.